So hi there, welcome to lesson 1, basic Stata concept. In this lesson, we shall be looking at 8 basic concepts that guide the use of Stata if you want to optimize use and have little or no challenges. Nigerian term for that is wahala. Moving forward, you need to understand these 8 basic concepts. They're very, very useful for you to align and optimize your experience with data. So I won't just waste your time. The first concept is called the command. So literally every activity you take in Stata is tied to a command. So there's use, there is drop, there is keep, and it's like some kind of, some kind of action word, a verb, duplicate, there is append, there is merge, there is reshape, there is rename. So you're doing something. So there are different commands, and almost everything you do in Stata, you have to do with a command. And it's just basically telling the computer what to do with the data that you have supplied. So they're initiated through the command window of the menu. I will show that shortly in lesson 2, where we talk about the interface. So you get to know where the menu is and where the command window is. So all commands have some kind of basic syntax, and this is very important. We're going to talk about the purple one, which is the var list. There is a separate video for var list and var name, where we try to just show the differences and how powerful they are when you use them with commands. Now you see the var list also in blue, right behind command again. So usually sometimes we have a a group of variables. If you remember in module 1, we talked about attributes or variables or columns, a group of columns that you use before the command and a group of variables that you use after the command. So we will give examples in the practical session, but please, you can screenshot this page because this will help you in the days to come. Then we have what we call the conditional variables. We're going to talk about that in this lesson. It's not every every observation, every entity you want to deal with. Sometimes you want to talk with the 45-year-olds in the data set. Sometimes you want to talk with only oranges among the crops. Sometimes you want to only deal with data from America or Europe. So you specify conditions, and that's what you find in the if expression and the in range expression. And then we have the final is options, which is incidentally the next concept we're just going to talk about. So without wasting much time, I go on to options. Now, every command, literally every command, not every command, most commands, just like I said, most activities are carried out by commands, anything you don't want to do. But most commands too have what we call options. And the best analogy I can give you is the command being bread. So the four pictures before you are a picture of bread. So bread can go with margarine or butter. Bread can go with jam. Bread can go with egg, and the egg could be fried or boiled or scotched. Whatever kind of or scrambled eggs, whatever kind of egg. So even the kind of egg can be an option, and they're usually shown in square brackets in the help section. So it's very important to know that they come in different options. We're going to talk about that also when we go into the practical sessions. So almost every command has an option, and it's very important to know the powers of the option. I was in some class some time ago and I realized that inability to use that option made somebody to do some work in Stata that will literally take probably 8 hours, and the person had been doing it for 30 days or so. So the idea is to understand the power of the options and use them to your maximum benefit. So it's just enough to know the command, which many people even know, but also pay attention to the options. It's very important and it will greatly help your career with Stata. So let's look at the third thing, case sensitivity. So when you are typing commands, lowercase are the ideal things to use, only things to use. If you type them in caps or type them in proper case, you would encounter what we call errors. So it's very important to know that that's the principle and concept by which Stata works. All these commands we just mentioned, including their options, are mostly specified in lowercase. Then we have what we call the variable names. So we'll explain that too. So the variable names are recognized. Stata recognizes them by their case. Now variables are interesting, or variable names. They can come as uppercase, lowercase, or proper case. And proper case, and what I mean by that is you have um, the first letter is capitalized and all the other ones are lowercase. But bottom line is that when the data has a certain particular, for example, a variable called age, and the age has it in proper sense, it does not see it as age in the lower sense. So that's why I give these examples, that age with the capital letter is different from age with the small letters. Age with the proper sense is different from age in capital letters. So we'll do all this in practicals, but please remember when we go into practical session that we refer to this. Now the fourth concept I want to talk about quickly is the conditional selection. Now this is very interesting and I spent some time here and I also spent some time in practical session. So sometimes you want to select or deal with certain variables, and that's why you see that bar list that you saw in the command variable. If you observe till now, most of the time we keep on referring back to command. Yes, we'll refer to command because that's the universe about which Stata works. So sometimes you want to specify certain variables, sometimes you want to specify certain observations. Please, if you don't remember all these terms, you can go back to module 1. We dealt with it, especially I think lesson 1, module 1 in detail. So please just check the video for that. So when you want to select the columns or attributes or variable names, we have what we call the wild characters. We have the dash, we have the question mark, and we have the tilde sign. So there are 4 basic ways of extracting them. So I wouldn't take so much time because I will try to explain this in detail in the practical session. We'll extract a data set, very small data set, and then we will look at it. But just to say that the asterisk shows that there is some text or no text before or after a variable. So you can see the var with the asterisk. That means that you start with my var, and then there's my var, x var, and y var. So when you select like that, you are telling the computer or you're telling the command these are the 3 variables you should work with. But sometimes there could be more, but you know that all the variables start with my var, so you can put an asterisk, So I wish I was some analogy, but when we do the training, when we do the practical session, you'll get to understand. So star var also means all variables that end with the spelling var. So, and then there's my star var, which means in between there are different texts. And then the tilde, and then there's the question mark, and then there's the dash. The dash is a scope. So all these things we'll do in detail. And just to put you on notice, to underscore all is very wonderful. It selects all the variables in the data set. So underscore all. We also have rows and entities. So sometimes you're not worried about the variables or the columns, you're worried about the rows. I don't want every row. So there's the if statement and the in statement. So if will select the rows based on certain conditions, and usually that condition is tied usually to the value of one of those variables. So I could say I want to see all those people who are age 45. So you just want to filter and look at them, or you want to see all those whose name is Joy, the name column, or those whose height is less than 23. So it just goes to those rows and picks based on that criteria that you had selected. So please, that's how the if statement works. I'm going to talk about something about the if statement, which you can already see here in the next, when I talk about the next concept. Now, the in statement is slightly different from the if statement. The in statement is looking at the row number. Simple. If statement is looking at a value of a variable. We did age, we did height. If you recollect, you can rewind just a few seconds ago. So in is focused on the row number, if is focused on a value of a variable. So when you quote the in statement, you are not really worried about any value. You're just worried about the row number, which we are going to show you when we talk about the interface. The other issue I really want to emphasize here is what we call the equality sign. And this is used after the if statement. There's a double equal to sign after the if statement. But if the if statement is not used, you just use a single statement. All these two will try and explain in detail. So the other concept I really want to talk about too is the concept of strings and numbers when we talk about the equality sign. So after the equality signs, the strings have quotes. We'll talk about the quotes later, and we have names. Okay, so let's look at the strings and numbers too with the equality sign. So any string after the equality sign, we use what's the word? Inverted commas. But when they are numbers, we do not use, there's no need for that. So strings are specified with inverted commas, and that's why I try to emphasize here. When you're talking about age, you don't see any inverted commas. So, but when you're talking about name, you can see Joy, we have the purple inverted commas just right there. So that is how it's done. Now, all these things I mentioned, like I keep mentioning, I'm sure when we get into the proper Stata interface, we will be able to emphasize them. But please, you may need to come back to this video after the practical sessions to come and reinforce what I just said. But I'm telling you ahead of time, these are principles that we need to know. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So we also have what we call the concept of abbreviation. You don't need to spell a command in full. As you begin to mature, you can also shorten your commands. So we're going to show that too, how you can do that. So these are a few commands. There's browse, edit, list, generate. You know, I told you commands seem to have a verb in Stata, most of them, not all of them. So it's very important to understand that concept too. Okay, so let's move on quickly. So there's something called the working directory. That is the current directory that the computer sees as the directory of focus. So just bear in mind, Stata can only focus on one directory at a time. So the current working directory is the current directory that is known and focused for the purposes of whatever manipulation you want to do. A directory is just a folder on your laptop. So we need to understand how it works because that greatly will help us to do the needful. So basically, I have shared so far 7 concepts with you. I've shared the command, the options, the case sensitivity. I have also shared the conditional statements. I have shared the abbreviation and the signs of equality. And then we talked about the change of directory. So I will move on to the 8th concept, which is very important and it's going to be very useful for you. Click the notification bell so that anytime there is a new video, you get informed. So there's going to be a full masterclass for logic, but I'm going to just take 3 basic concepts under logic and then we'll apply it make it very simple, apply it, and then share the symbols that are used in Stata for this. So there's the and, there's the not, and the or. Now, to do justice to this, I need to talk of popular staple foods here in Nigeria and I guess in Africa. And I guess somebody watching this must know what these food items look like. But the whole idea is just to get some concept of how this logic works, and particularly about and, or, and not. So there's rice on one side and beans on the other side. And when you merge them together, you get rice and beans. So I made beans yellow, rice red, and then the orange, which happens whenever you overlap red and yellow, you get orange. So there are three dishes that you can find here. So there's rice on one side, plain rice, and then right on the other extreme side is beans. In the middle is a mixture of rice and beans. So when we're looking at the logic, we are trying to apply that principle here and try to do that. I'm going somewhere with this, but try and apply it to anything, any logic, whether you're programming ODK, you're even doing SQL, the same fundamental principle applies, and people always miss it most of the time when it comes to logic, and it has serious consequences, which is not for discussion today. So that's basically what rice looks like and beans. I just want to hope that you have seen it before, and when you mix it, it looks like B. So let's look at the logic rice and beans. So where they overlap, that means you have rice there and you have beans there. Now these three dishes, it's only the B portion that meets that criteria. A is rice alone, C is beans alone. So B is rice and beans. Now if I said not beans, everything but beans, what I will have is C. Sorry, not rice. Pardon me, please, not rice. So everything I would have must not have rice in it. So A has rice in it, B has rice in it, so only C qualifies. If I also similarly say not beans, anything that has beans in it will not qualify. C has some beans, so I said not beans. B has some beans because a mixture of beans and rice, so A will only qualify. So sometimes when things get so complex, I always like us to simplify stuff. So you can draw this diagram anytime you have problem with the and the or. People have it, or the not. It's more complicated than this, but like I said, this is just fundamental. So when we have rice or beans, very interesting. You go through all the plates and then try and find out which one meets that criteria. A meets the criteria. If you find rice there or you find beans there, you qualify. A qualifies, B qualifies, and C qualifies because you can find at least one of the two inside. Now I just need to put it out there quickly that whenever you have the or statement, the spectrum is wide. Whenever you have the and statement, the spectrum is usually very, very limited. Usually the most limited. So if I said rice and beans and stew, it's most likely going to be limited comparing to things like rice or beans or stew. And there are many what's the word, many factors that help. So if I said I'm looking for a girl who is African, so girl, gender, African, and who is under 16. Now there are many ants, there are 3 ants. It's very limited. Population size is usually low, but if I said I was looking for a girl or an African or someone who is less than 16 years old, we are having a wide spectrum. So we'll deal with that when we have our logic masterclass. So click subscribe, notification bell, so that anytime there's a new video coming up, you'll be notified. So let's move on just basically to the signs and symbols and logic. So the or sign is just a slash, vertical slash. So you can get that on your keyboard. Usually it's near the backspace or forward slash. Just check. So it's vertical slash or. And the not has two symbols you can use. You can use the exclamation mark or the tilde. And the and statement is the ampersand symbol. These are the symbols that are used. So in our practical sessions, we will apply this and you'll get to see it yourself. So there's no need to be what's the word? Frightened. In the days when you get to meet a lot of complex challenges as it regards data, you can come back to this video and understand the fundamentals again. Basically, or is a wider spectrum, and like I said, we'll deal with it in a deeper sense. So thank you so much. This is the end of lesson 1. I hope you have gained something substantial, something that is what's the word? Something that is useful for the journey. We'll try to engage you with something a bit more complicated at the end of this module, but the idea is to provoke thinking, provoke critical thinking and independence. Thank you so much, and see you in the next lesson.